Hi, welcome to How to Repair. Is your Bosch, Neff or Siemens washing machine intermittently spinning or not spinning at all? Are the clothes coming out soaking wet? In this video I'm going to show you how to diagnose the problem and rectify it. Okay, today we're working on a Neff integrated machine and it's finished its cycle. This video will apply to Bosch, Neff and Siemens and any other brands associated. This is an integrated washer dryer, but this will also apply to freestanding machines. The first thing you need to do is take the clothes out of the machine. Now, if there is no water in the drum at all, this means that the pump system is good and therefore it has emptied all the water. If you still have a lot of water in the machine, you need to watch another video, and I'll put this at the end of this video, and that's to do with blockages on the system to do with the pump, sump hose and waste pipe. First job you need to do is disconnect the machine from the electricity. Then you're going to have to pull the machine out from wherever it's situated, disconnect the water supply and disconnect the waste hose. Now once you have the machine pulled out, there are usually multiple different types of back on the machine. Some just have a plate if they're freestanding, and sometimes this is more difficult to work on. On some machines you're able to work from underneath, but we've got to gain access to the motor system. Remove the back plate. There are multiple screws all the way round and you need to make sure that you keep them in order because some have different threads. There are two different types of screw here, one that goes into the top plate and one around the side. Do try to keep your screws in order as it's important to put them back in the correct threads. On this machine you only need to put your hand at the top, lift up the back panel and the panel will come away. Be careful of the sharp edges. Okay, to take the belt off is straightforward. Just use your fingers, rotate the wheel, pull the belt towards you and the belt will come straight off. There's then just a couple of bolts we need to do and undo the wiring plug. Do be aware that there are two types of motors fitted to Bosch, Neff and Siemens machines. Some are induction motors. These motors are controlled with a circuit board, which would be a different type of fault completely. But we're going to quickly have a look at this machine and have a look at the problem, which I believe may be the carbon brushes. You may need to cut a cable tie to release the wiring harness. And I can already see a lot of carbon deposit in this area, so I think I'm correct. Now, one of the wires on the earth has a pin system that you need to press down to release the actual spade connector from its terminal. The motor plug is straightforward and comes away, and there's a second earth wire at the top which also has a little pin that you need to press down, and then the plug will come away. At this point we are going to be able to prise the motor slightly off the brackets. At this point we need to take the motor off, but I will tell you now, sometimes they can stick onto the drum and you may need to use a flat blade screwdriver just to lever the motor away slightly before holding the motor, sliding it forward and bringing it out. Okay, here we have the motor, and this motor is a C-set motor, and this motor has an identification label on it. You'll see that it says MCA 61/64-148/SM7. It's a 12,200 RPM motor and thermal protected as well. This motor we know was slightly agitating, but it was jumping in this cycle and we've caught this very early. Normally when carbon brushes go in a motor like this, they will eventually burn out completely. Sometimes they can do damage to the armature, and the armature is in here where you can see the multiple lugs. And luckily we have caught this early without doing any damage to the armature, and it should be a straightforward job to replace it. Just using a screwdriver. Do take note of where the carbon brushes come from, and also take note of the angle of the brush, because you will need to know that when replacing them. So I'm just taking out the one side here. This is a 7-wire motor. This means that 2 wires are going to the tachometer on the back here. That's the two wires I'm undoing at the moment. They just come up. The motor brush will come away, and you can see that it's charred on the tip. And I'll show you the other carbon brush because I suspect that is not charred. Now, if you look closely at the carbon brush, again, you can see another terminal that has a little pin in it that you need to depress to take the spade connector off. Doing it on the other side, exactly the same process. Pull off the carbon brush. You've got that little pin on the spade connector, and these are the smaller spade connectors. You normally end up with two sizes, a 4.8 or 4.2, I can't remember the actual size, and then the smaller one, which is 3 something. This carbon brush, as you can see, has got slightly a shiny surface compared to this carbon brush, which has got a real charcoal effect to it. And if I bring this up for the camera, you can see the difference between the two. This means that this carbon brush is the one that is completely worn out to the point it was stopping the machine, but this had a couple of, well, looking at the length of it, shall we say just a couple of days. And I'll show you the new ones that we're going to fit now. Now first I want to show you the old carbon brush compared to the new carbon brush. As you can see, it's totally different in length. This has got 5-6 years of usage on it. This is completely burnt out. Now, what I wanted to explain to you was I have 2 sets of carbon brush here. They are the same type of carbon brushes, but the angles are different. Let me explain. The replacement carbon brushes go in so the angle lies perfectly flat against the armature, and that just goes into that position. But if you wanted to fit the other type angle carbon brush and say you couldn't get the angle that you required, there is a mounting plate for the carbon brush to go in at a different angle. And this means that you can actually position the carbon brush exactly the same as long as the wiring is long enough to fit the terminal correctly. I hope that clarifies a few things for people who have asked me questions about brushes arriving and sometimes they have a different angle on the brush head. Okay, we'll go ahead and fit the new carbon brushes now. Just carefully slot them in, locate them in place and replace the screws. Now, as the new carbon brushes didn't come with the wire carrier, I'm just using a cable tie and neatly putting the wires attached and then just snip off the end. Now, when fitting the motor, do support it as they're quite heavy and make sure you line up on the lugs correctly. It's 2 at the back, 2 at the front. Once they're on, put just the bolts in just to make sure it doesn't fall off. Now, if you do have a different type motor system to this type on your integrated machine, let me tell you some of the common problems. The new machines use an induction motor that normally only have 3, and some of the motors, if I remember correctly, have 5 wires because they're still using the tacho system, or they may be using some type of protection system. But these are controlled with a circuit board. And the problem being is a lot of the circuit boards are prone, the motor control boards are prone to actually failing. Normally, when you test the motor, the 3 fields on the motor should all be roughly the same. By the way, when putting these on, you don't need to depress the clip. You only need to push them on and they will lock into place. And as I was saying, the new motors are induction motors, and they do go through circuit boards occasionally, and it is an expensive repair. Although the motors are better, more economic on energy, they do have circuit board failures, and the circuit boards can be quite expensive, but sometimes you are able to repair them. But you can see all about that in other videos. Putting a cable tie on, that's all correct. Now we can put the belt on. Now the easiest way of putting the belt on is actually put it onto the grooves that you think it came off. Put the belt on at the top and then rotate the wheel around. Now what you're looking for here is to align the belt in the center of the main pulley. So that is too far backwards at the moment, so I need to bring it one lug forward and then do a full rotation, and that is sitting square on the actual belt, on the pulley itself. Now we can put the machine on test and make sure it's all going through the cycle correctly. Make sure you put the correct screws back in the correct location. And there we go, the machine's all up and running again. I do advise you doing 1 or 2 spin cycles after replacing the carbon brushes without putting any clothes in the machine. This will give the carbon brushes time to bed in perfectly against the armature before putting excess load on the machine. I hope you enjoyed this video. You've got 2 choices now. You can either watch the video on how to remove the pump and clear any blockages in the machine, or there is another video that will be put on this as well with regards how washer dryers work and how to rectify the problem. Thanks very much indeed for watching, and if you do need any spare parts, visit the website and make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much indeed for watching.